Irish Red Ale on Smokin' and Drinkin'. Hey, welcome back to Smokin' and Drinkin'. I'm Mike, and today we're going to make an Irish Red Ale, or at least as close as we can get to one. Let's get started. All right, we've got everything set up. You'll notice I'm in the kitchen today and not in the dining room where I usually am. We're going to be needing to use the stove, and I need a little more space. We've got a lot of stuff here. So we're in the kitchen. Like I said, we're going to make an Irish Red Ale, and for our ingredients, we're going to use 1.1 pounds of liquid malt extract. We're using Breeze CBW Pale Ale. So could also use a light ale. They're similar. Probably should have had a light ale, but this is what I had in the cabinet. So for the crystal malt, we are going to be using 2 ounces of the crystal malt. And the roasted barley, we are using half an ounce of the roasted barley. That smells interesting, by the way. It almost smells like toasted oats or toasted rice, something like that. And then for our hops, as I said, the East Kent Golding hops. The first edition that we'll be putting in is 1 ounce of the hops, and then the second edition is 0.05 ounces. And those will go in at the beginning of the boil, and then again the last 10 minutes of a 60-minute boil. So let's get the barley and the malt in our bag, and we'll have to wait. I don't think our water is quite up to temp yet, but we'll get these in here, get that ready. We're just going to tie that shut. It's just like we would steep a tea. We're going to steep our grains. Get that tied shut. We'll get it tied tight. We don't want to lose anything. We want to keep the grains and the barley in the bag so that keeps our wort clear, as clear as we can. So, all right. With that set, we'll let the water get up to temp, and we'll be right back. Okay, we've got our water up to 155, and this mesh bag was a little loose for the toasted barley, so I put another muslin bag inside of there. Probably overkill to have both, but didn't want that all just leaking out everywhere on the counter and everywhere else. So we're going to put this in the water for 20 to 30 minutes to steep, and then we'll pull it out. So let's get that in there. All right, we're just going to lay that right in the water. Just going to let that steep for 20, probably 25 minutes, and we'll check back. We're going to keep this temperature at between 155 and 160. Using my temperature gun to test it here. We're at 162. It's a little warm. We've got the heat backed off. It'll drop down, so we'll check back in about 30 minutes. Okay, we've been steeping the grains at about 160 for 20 minutes. We're going to let it go another 10 minutes, but in the meantime, I poured 1.1 pounds of the Breeze Pale Ale LME Liquid Malt Extract into a measuring glass. It is very thick. I don't know if you've ever worked with it or not. It is like molasses, maybe even thicker. But it took me a little while to get that in there, and I poured it. I used my scale, put the glass on, teared it out, and poured 1.1 pounds in there. It's a sticky mess. I got all cleaned up, but we'll give it another 10 minutes, and then we'll pull it off. We'll add the LME, stir that in, being careful not to scorch it. We'll put it back on the heat and bring it up to a boil. And then when it's at a boil, we'll add our first addition of hops. But it's steeping nicely. We're going to go another 10 minutes. All right, it's been 30 minutes. We're going to pull the steeping bag out and let the water drain, and then we're going to add our LME and bring it up to a boil, and then we'll add this. Okay, first we'll get our steeping bag out, and we're not going to squeeze it. When we get that up to a boil, we'll add our liquid malt extract. We've got it up to a boil here, so we're going to turn the heat off while we add the LME. We don't want it to scorch. And get that dissolved real well. We've got it up to a boil. We'll add our first addition of hops and let that go for 50 minutes. And then we'll add our second addition. Check back in a minute. 50 minutes. Okay. Our wort has been boiling 50 minutes. We're going to add our second addition of hops. And we'll let it go another 10 minutes. We're going to pull it off of the stove, and we're going to cool it down as quickly as we can in the sink with an ice bath. All right, we'll just let that go till it cools down to about 65 to 75 degrees, and then we'll get it into our fermenter. Okay, we've got our wort cooled down to about 98 degrees. That's cool enough to work with. We could pitch our yeast at that temperature, but we're going to let it sit for a little while longer. We're going to get it into this pitcher. I have a feeling that we boiled off to below a gallon. We lose a lot to evaporation, so I might have to think about covering it while I boil it, or spend the money on the actual equipment to make beer. But let's go ahead and try and get this into the pitcher without making a huge mess. Not too bad. 1.045 is what we're shooting for. Let's see. The LME says 1.035 per pound per gallon. We had added some other things, the grains. So let's just see where we're at. Smells really good. All right. Let's see where we're at here. 1.050. And we are not at a gallon. So I think we could add a little bit of water to that. We have room. 1.050 is probably going to put it at 7%. 5.5 to 6% maybe. Let's add this back in. And let's just add a little bit of water and see what happens. We've got room on our specific gravity. We've got a little room to go here, so I'm going to try and get it up a little closer to a gallon. Let's just start with about 16 ounces of purified drinking water. Let's stop there. It's not quite a gallon yet. It's about 115 ounces. I just really don't want it. I want a little bit of punch to my beer, you know. Don't want it too light. Let's give that a little bit of a stir. Get mixed up. Want to make sure we have it mixed real well before we take our reading so that we get an accurate reading. Temperature can affect specific gravity as well. This is now probably 80 degrees. And our specific gravity is sitting at 1.042. We were shooting for 1.045. So we're pretty much right on. That's going to give us an ABV of about 4.5%. It's not a super strong beer, but that's okay. The flavor is what's important, right? All right, so we've got that pretty close to a gallon. I have a little more You know what? This is going to be too big. This is 1.3 gallons. That might leave me with a little more headroom, headspace than I want. So we're going to get a little bit smaller fermenter. We'll go with a 1 gallon fermenter. So be right back. And of course, we've got sanitization bubbles in there. That's okay. That doesn't hurt anything. All right. So let's transfer this to our fermenter. Almost done for this portion of the brew. And see all those bubbles in there? That's actually good. That will aerate. It's called aerating the wort. The yeast needs oxygen to build its colony. So the beginning of it, before fermentation, you want oxygen. Once alcohol is present, you do not want oxygen. So this is good. This is aerating it. We like to see those bubbles in there. Got some of the grains left in the bottom. That's okay. We don't really need those in there. Although they do contain some of the sugars. So we might try and get them in there. I don't know how we're going to get them down the funnel. We'll figure something out. Probably shouldn't put those in there, but I don't make a lot of beer, so I'm kind of learning as I go as well. So we'll just see what we can get to go in there. Maybe if I make more, I'll start spending more money on the right equipment. But this is just something I do at home as a hobby. I'm kind of showing you guys how to do it. If you want to make beer, but you don't want to spend a lot of money getting into the hobby, you don't need a lot of fancy equipment. So again, like I said, we're just below a gallon. We are right at right here is a gallon. We're just shy of that. Like I said, it was just a few ounces. I'm going to add just a skosh more water just to get it up there. I don't like having a lot of head space on there. And I want to get it above the shoulder. That's good enough. I don't want to be too greedy. So we've got our wort. We need to add our yeast. And we are using Safe Ale SO4. It is a dry ale yeast. And we just need to, this is not a packet you can tear, so we have to cut it. You only need about 1/5. One packet is good for 5 gallons, but I've got several of these and they're getting a little older. I just use the whole packet. I don't make enough to scrimp on the yeast. So yeah, see, this was made in September of 24. It is now March of 25. So we want to make sure this yeast is viable. I could have started it in a little bit of the wort and let it sit for about 15-20 minutes to make sure that it starts, but I am not worried about it. And I'm also going to have to run and get a bung since I changed fermenters to a bung style. So this other fermenter had just the 1/2-inch grommet on top, so put that there. I'm going to go get my bung. I'll be right back. All right. And in the sanitizer for a minute or so. 30 seconds. Doesn't take too long. There's a pile of yeast on the top. That's fine. It always bugs me, but it really doesn't matter. It will fall down into the wort and do its job. Usually I swirl it and then I get a bunch of it up around the neck, and that's just wasted. So I'm not going to swirl it this time. I'm going to resist the urge. Then we take our airlock. We got it filled to the max fill line with sanitization fluid, Star San, and I think I'm going to put this little band on there just to make sure this doesn't pop off. It's not quite the right size of bung. This is actually a 1-gallon wine jug. I don't remember what style of wine I bought. It wasn't all that expensive, but got a free fermenter out of it. So there you go. We have our 1-gallon Irish red ale, wort right now. It's not an ale yet. We'll let that sit for a couple of days. We'll let it ferment. When the activity kind of dies down, we'll take another reading. And when we are confident that the fermentation process is done, we will bottle it. Actually, normally I would bottle it and I would use some priming sugar and a little bit of yeast in the bottles. We're going to do something different. Done this before, so it's not really different. We're going to put it in a keg. I have a 1-gallon growler keg, and we're gonna carbonate it in the keg. So first we got to get it to ferment. So we'll check back in a couple days. We are back to the Irish red ale. It's been a week. So actually it's been 3 days. Lost track of time here. It's been 3 days, and the airlock's been pretty active. Those first 2 days, it was really going to town. It's still bubbling. There's a lot going. It's a lot of gas in there, I think. Carbon dioxide. But we're going to go ahead and take a reading, see where it's at. See where we're at now with our specific gravity. Activity in the airlock doesn't always mean fermentation, though. Could be carbon dioxide, as I said, just off-gassing. You see a lot of lees on the bottom, which is also to be expected. Let's see if I can get you in there to see that. Yeah, see, there's quite a bit. There's almost an inch there. So there's a little bit of croissant on the top. That's also normal, but we're going to rack this to a different fermenter just to get it off the lees. Let it sit probably for a day or two. Make sure we're done. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and just see where we're at right now. It is definitely a dark beer. It's not as much of the red color that I might have expected, but Irish red ale is not really all that red. It's a little bit red. Kind of depends on the brewer. It's got a little bit of a reddish hue to it. That's okay. Depends. The proof is in the taste, right? We're not doing this for looks. We're doing this for taste. Okay, let's see where we're at. Some of those bubbles out of the way. Bubbles make it hard to read the hydrometer. Again, everything's been sanitized in the sand tub as usual. I'm tired of hearing me say that, but it's important. Okay, we are at, come on, Bubbles, work with me here. We're sitting at 1.012. 1.012. I'm going to write that down because I forget so quickly. 1.012. We started at 1.040. See where we're at with that. 040 minus 1.012 is 0.028 times 131.25 gives us 3.675 or 3.7% alcohol. I have a feeling it's not done. Yeah, I think it's we're we're going to let it sit for a little while. You know, I checked back to my brewing notes and what was expected of this brew, and our original gravity, we expected it to be 1.045, and we were at 1.040. It's pretty close. And we expected our final gravity at 1.010, and we are at 1.012. So we are pretty close. I think I am going to let it sit for another day and take another gravity reading, and just to make sure. I don't want to create any bombs or anything. I don't want it to explode on me. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the fermenter. It smells like a beer. It smells really oaty, kind of a toasted oats, kind of like Cheerios. I guess that's not uncommon. They're made from the same stuff. Be very careful pouring this back in so as not to make a lot of bubbles and splashing. I can see a lot of bubbles in there already, which is the carbon dioxide. It's off-gassing, so I'm not too worried about oxidizing it, because that carbon dioxide is heavier than oxygen, so it pushes all of the oxygen out. But still want to be careful, just to be careful. Practice like you play, right? Okay, so we're going to just put the airlock back on. Give it another day or two. We'll check another reading, and then we'll be sure that we're done. And then we'll move on to the carbonating phase. Okay, I'm going to let that sit. All right, it's been 3 more days on the Irish Red Ale, and we'll take another reading. Hopefully it's finished, and we can get it carbonating. So let's see, our starting gravity was 1.040, and we checked it 3 days later, and it was 1.012. So let's see if it's stayed where it was. If it's 1.012 again, then we can pretty safely assume that it is finished fermenting. Try not to disturb things too much. All right. Looks a little clearer today. Should be. Let's see where we're at here. 1.012. So I think we are good to go to rack this. We're going to rack it to a pitcher. All right, so we're going to be very gentle here. And oops, we want our filter cap on there. Like I said, there's a good almost an inch of lees on the bottom. We're just going to go down about halfway. There we go. And as usual, we just rack. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're going to stop it right there. Started to get a few little wispies in there. We don't want that, so we're gonna lose a little bit, but that's okay. That's part of the process. Smells like beer. I'm not gonna taste it. As you know, there's no carbonation to it, so it is. If it was wine, we'd call it still, but we're just gonna put that back gently into the pitcher. Okay, we have sanitized our keg and all of the hardware that goes with it, just like all the other times. Put your one end down in there and the other end in your pitcher, and start the siphon. We had about 112 ounces, just about just a little shy of a gallon, but that's okay. We get what we get, and we enjoy it. So I'm gonna let this siphon. We'll get it all into the keg, and then we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we did pretty well there. That's just about every last drop. I saw one or two little wispies going through the tube, but not too bad, so I think we'll be okay. Okay. Just gonna set that in here so it's out of the way. All right. Before I go on, I need to make some notes here, so I don't forget. We make these notes so that if we want to make it again another time, we know what we did. If we had to make adjustments, we write those down so we know how to reproduce it. So write the date and this final gravity, which is the same as specific gravity, 1.012. So let's calculate the ABV. All right. Let's see, we started at 1.040. We ended at 1.012 equals 0.028 times 131.25 gives us 3.67%. 3 points, we'll call it 3.7. That's not bad. It's a little lower than I would have hoped, but we just get a drink more that way. So we can record our ABV, 3.675 or 3.7%. All right. So got our notes. We're racked to the growler. So then we're just going to assemble it. We have our dip tube. It just goes right in there. Actually, I should have assembled all these pieces first. That would have been easier. Everything assembles and disassembles real easy for easy cleanup. And that makes it nice. There's a nice pressure gauge on here and a relief valve. Got all the things you need to keg up a beer. So I've done a couple with this. I've done a beer and a cider with this. It worked out real well. So let's get this tightened down so there are no leaks. Get it good and tight. Got this on Amazon. It's a TM Craft 1 gallon growler keg. Again, Amazon's not a sponsor. TM Craft's not a sponsor. I'm not an affiliate or anything. I just like the equipment, and Amazon makes it easy to get to my house. So then we have our CO2 cartridge. You always want to make sure your valve is off, and it does have increase and decrease, so you know which way to go. Always want to have it all the way off. Once I didn't, and instantly lost the entire contents of the cartridge. Now I'm always nervous. Always have to double check. Decrease. There we go. Get that screwed in tight. And then what we want to do, I want to open it up full open and pressurize the whole keg all the way up. I put it up to just below the red line. Pressurize the keg, and then I'm going to turn the valve back off and let that out, so that'll force any oxygen that we had in there out. So we're going to turn this back off to the decrease side, and we're just going to pull the relief valve and let all that oxygen and CO2 and everything out of there. And then we open the valve again, put it right up to right below the red line. And then what I'm going to do, I have a refrigerator in the basement that I use for my wines and cold crashing and things like that. And I'm going to set that in there. Normally wouldn't fit in a refrigerator because it's so tall, but I've got it set up for this. So I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and basically cold crash and pressurize. And we'll check it in a couple days. There's a fast way to carbonate them. Once it's cold, you can take it out and roll it for about 20 or 30 minutes and then put it back in the refrigerator. I might do that after a couple hours in the refrigerator, and that'll help speed up the carbonation process. So when that's done, I'll bring you back for the final tasting. We'll be back in just a little while. All right, we've had our Irish Red Ale in the refrigerator in the keg for about 3 days, and we're ready to tap. So we need to reduce our pressure. We'll decrease this all the way down, and then we need to drop our pressure down. We're at about 22 pounds. We want to drop it down to about 8 pounds for serving. So we'll just let this, we'll drop it down to about 5, and then we'll increase our pressure, get it back up to 8. A little too much. Back off just a hair. Okay. All right. So let's get a glass here. Pretty heady, but that's okay. Pour a little bit of that off. Don't need quite so much head on there. Probably should back my pressure down just a little more. But that looks pretty good. Kind of a dark red, a reddish brown color. Smells like an oaty, nutty beer. It's not too hoppy on the aroma. Let's get a taste. Oh wow. That's really good. It's not too hoppy. It's not real heavy or dark. That's the way I like it. It's got a nice oaty oat flavor, just like on the aroma. Just toasted, the toasted barley gave it a really good flavor. Wow, that's good. Pretty close, pretty close. Well, that about does it for the Irish Red Ale. As always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Smokin' and Drinkin'. Remember to hit that subscribe button, and if you like it, hit the like button and the notification bell. And as always, Prost!